Hi, my name is John Woo, and I'm your host for the Legislative Weekly, the show where we talk about exactly what it is that your government has been up to. First up on our docket is some good news for anyone who has a disability or who might one day have a disability. Bill C-81 has passed its second reading in the House. Now, this is the Accessible Canada Act, which outlines a national strategy to identify and remove barriers throughout our towns and our cities. I, for one, think this is a fantastic initiative to be undertaking. So many of our public spaces are unfortunately very inaccessible for many people, including those with disabilities. And with Canada's rapidly aging population, I think this is the sort of investment that will yield returns far, far into the future. On the international front, Bill C-79 has passed its second reading in the House. Now, C-79 is the act to implement the new Trans-Pacific Partnership, one of the biggest trade deals ever. Now, this trade deal has been in progress since 2008, so it's good to finally see it unfolding. And once it passes, we can expect to join our allies such as Singapore, Mexico, and Japan in seeing lower tariffs, decreased trade regulations, and more intellectual property protection all across the Pacific Rim. Now, everybody loves summer, but sometimes it can feel like there's not enough holidays to go around. Bill C-369 might be changing that. Now, this is the bill that will establish National Indigenous Peoples Day as a national holiday. So, if this bill does pass, next summer, in June, we'll hopefully all be enjoying a nice day off from work in order to relax and to take some time to appreciate the many contributions our Indigenous peoples have made in making our great country what it is. Over on the Senate side of things, we have quite a few things developing. Bill C-71, the Liberals' new gun control legislation, has recently passed its first reading. Now, this is a hugely controversial bill, with over 90,000 Canadians writing into the government opposing it. If this bill is passed, it will impose a much more strict system of gun control, including mandatory record keeping for a lot of the vendors, which some of the critics have argued is a sort of a gun registry being sneaked in addition to greater RCMP oversight in the whole verification process of acquiring a gun. So before, if you were to go try to get a gun license, they would only look at your past 5 years. If this bill is passed, they'll be able to look at your entire lifetime for warning signs such as signs of mental illness, domestic abuse, or other kinds of criminality. Last but not least, we have quite a lot of changes coming to the Canadian Criminal Code through Bill C-51, which has passed its second reading in Senate. Now, this bill covers a huge number of changes in terms of modernizing our criminal code, and unfortunately, I don't have the time to go over it all, but I would like to raise a few highlights. So the big one is that it will be modernizing the sexual assault portions of the criminal code by introducing the language of consent and offering clarification to things like unconscious people not being able to give consent. Additionally, it will work in a few of the recent court cases into the legislation itself. So for instance, evidence of a person's past sexual history will not be allowed to be used as evidence of that person giving consent. In addition to that, there will be a few very outdated criminal offenses which are being cut out from the code. These are things that no one's really been charged for decades now, such as pretending to practice witchcraft or dueling, per se. So, no big loss there. But on top of all this, there is a very interesting change that they're making to the duties of the Department of Justice. With Bill C-51, every single time a bill is now being tabled, there must be a consultation with the Department of Justice on the constitutionality of that particular bill. Now, the mindset here seems to be that if the government is able to evaluate the constitutionality of it before actually pushing that bill through, there will be less constitutional challenges and less lawsuits against the government down the line, hopefully saving a lot of money and a lot of the court's resources. On the downside, this does introduce an extra step and additional red tape in what is already a very long process, so it should be interesting to see how this actually pans out and whether this piece of legislation does accomplish its purpose. Once again, this is John Woo with Legislative Weekly. Thanks for tuning in, and hope to see you next week.